Mm-hmm. I still believe there are benefits to being busy, but there are detriments. And it's just I think it's a balance sheet. First of all, figure out like, what's the benefit this is giving me, but what's it costing me too? Many of my clients are pathological givers. Mm-hmm. We're saying yes so much, it's just pathological. We're just not stopping to say, why am I saying yes?
Hey, welcome to another episode of the Coffee Break Podcast, where our mission is to share business ideas, practices, and strategies while we enjoy our cup of coffee. Today's guest is Kurt Graves, and we're going to be talking a little bit about some of the things he's learned over the last 10 years of chairing a Vistage group and multiple groups, and the lessons that he's learned from over 10,000 hours of conversation. That's going to be the topic for today. But before we get into that, we do want to invite you to subscribe if you haven't already. Wherever you're watching this, if it's on Facebook or YouTube, there's a subscribe or follow button right below us. Make sure you click that. If you're listening on an audio version, make sure you hit the follow or subscribe button so you can get a brand new episode that we release every Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. So we want you to make sure you're tuned in for all of those things because we've got plenty more episodes on the way. And you can check out all of the 200 plus episodes that we have on our website, Loc-Doc.net/podcast. Now, grab a cup of coffee and get ready for this conversation.
We got so much to say. We got a podcast to make. We're sipping on lattes, and it's time for a coffee break. It's time for a coffee break. Oh, yeah.
Kurt, thanks for being here.
Man, my pleasure.
I'm excited. So, I'm pretty confident you were on here another time. We'll have to go back through the archives and see. But
probably so.
In the early days, within the first year that we were doing the podcast, you came into our old studio, the closet, and we had one little GoPro camera sitting up here that we were recording off of.
Really?
And, yeah.
Man, it seemed immense.
Oh. Well,
at the time, to me.
And now we've got this whole little studio thing set up, and it's kind of fun.
It is amazing. It's very fun.
Yeah.
Very fun.
But I'm glad you're here.
Thank you.
Excited to have a conversation with you for today. It's been cool. I was trying to think through, and we've talked about this before, but I think we first met, it's 7-8 years ago now?
It's something like that.
Yeah.
I could look it up, but didn't do that before I walked in. So let's say 8.
Let's just call it 8.
Just for the sake of exaggeration.
And nobody else will know the difference. So, but the cool thing about it is I appreciate, how you've poured into my life and how you've been an impact on this business. And so it's really cool to kind of have this conversation today and put together some thoughts.
Thank you.
How about that?
Likewise.
We're going to be talking, we're going to get into rapid fire in just a second, but we're going to be talking, you recently celebrated your 10th year as a Vistage chair.
Yes.
And you got tons of accolades associated with that. Like you've awards
and plenty of mistakes, an equal number of mistakes.
But one of the things I wanted to kind of talk about today was you said in your post you had over 8,000 hours of private coaching sessions with CEOs and business owners, and over 2,400 hours or something like that of sessions.
Yeah, group facilitations.
Yeah. So that's a lot of conversations. That's a lot of knowledge packed in your head.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to kind of pull out some of the kind of big takeaways, some of the big lessons that you've picked up. Because one of the things that I've seen, and I know this was a long introduction, but one of the things that I've seen as being part of Vistage and talking with other business owners over the years is we all run into the same type of situations at different times throughout business growth, but there's not a whole lot of new problems that are being invented.
No.
So there's just a recirculation of them or how it shows up differently in your business, right?
Yep, exactly.
So my thought on it is, as we're sitting here listening to, or people that are listening or business owners, maybe they're managers, whatever, are going to say, oh yeah, I'm either walking through that or I don't know that I'm getting ready to walk through that. So it's something I can be on the lookout for. So I probably have more thoughts on that, but I've extended our introduction way too long.
No, it's perfect.
You ready?
And I think you're right. I'm ready. I'm ready.
Okay.
I'm a little afraid, but let's throw something out here.
I mean, it is what it is. Rapid fire.
Okay.
5 randomly selected questions just to get under your skin with unknown point values.
All right.
And then we'll give you a score at the end.
All right. Now you're going to give me the score.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm ready.
Yeah, because it's always fun to do.
Do I need to know the scoring methodology?
Like I know what it is.
Okay, all right.
All right. Question number 1. What is something that others purchase that you simply can't understand why?
Oh, something that people purchase that I simply can't understand why. Parakeets.
I was going to say the same thing. Why would anybody ever buy a parakeet?
We had a parakeet as a kid, and my grandfather, for some odd reason, raised them, had the parakeet coop outside. And it seems like it's a bird that just throws seed everywhere.
Yeah.
And you have to vacuum it or sweep it up. It's a mess.
Yeah.
And
The parakeet, they're small little birds, right?
yeah. And they're pretty and they can talk to you, but just a few choice things. And it doesn't seem like it won't cuddle up with you like perhaps your puppy or your kitty might, or even, so it doesn't, a parakeet, it can't be eaten, at least not by a human. So I would say parakeet for sure.
I feel like we had a parakeet as a kid for a short period of time.
And you named it?
I don't remember. I do remember that it threw birdseed or stuff out of the cage all the time. I feel like
a lot.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I feel like it flew away when we took it outside for something, and then it was just disappeared.
That's probably how a lot of parakeets go. That's funny. Oh my gosh. Yeah, parakeet for sure.
Got it. Question number 2.
Yeah.
What have you done that you didn't like,
Oh my gosh.
but you would be willing to give it another shot?
Oh. We had. I mean, this is remarkably easy because it's pretty painful.
Okay.
My wife and I had thought we were taking the perk of a business trip that was in. My business trip was to Bologna. That was a repeating trip from years ago, and we thought, since we're over there, she should come over with me, and we should go to Florence. And it turned out to be the worst vacation trip of our marriage. And it wasn't marriage threatening, but it was very stressful. And I feel like it would be lovely to redeem that.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I don't know if we will, but
Yeah.
definitely that was, I don't know if I answered the question straight up, but that trip was a disaster. Yeah. A lot of, yeah. Luggage got lost. My luggage got lost. The venue, the hotel we were staying in was awful. There just wasn't much good about the vacation. It wasn't. The best thing was when Kathy got on the plane to fly back to the States, and my baggage was there, and I picked it up and got on the train and went to Bologna. That was the highlight of the trip.
This part of this trip is over.
Man.
Yeah, that's a bummer.
That was a bummer.
Yeah.
It was a lot of money too, but yeah.
All right, question number 3. What old school skill set do you have?
Old school skill set. Wow. With a K, old school?
No.
No.
CH.
CH. Okay, old school. I'm not even sure what that means.
They're random questions.
Okay, it's random. Old skill set. Okay, skill set. I'm decent with a yo-yo.
Ooh.
I got this one. I got a little bit of around the world. I could probably still do.
Yeah.
Maybe I could do. Don't think I could still do the
rock the baby.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think and remember, there was a thing long before you. There was these things called clackers.
Oh.
They were these dangerous. They could be used as weapons. They were never. It was just a string with a ring in the center and 2 resin balls about this big around, and you would do this, and they would go. They would clack back and forth.
Yeah.
And I still have a pair, and I feel like that's an old skill.
Yeah.
And I think I can play a tonette if you know what a tonette is.
I don't know either of the 2 last things that you just described.
Well, I can bring them around next time we're together, and you can. So we'll see how you do.
Do a little demo.
Yeah. Tonette was like it's like a pipe, and it was probably made out of plastic, and you gave it to like a 4th grader to figure out if they had any musical skills. I was undeterred by the first result, which probably showed I didn't have any skills, but I just kept right on going. Through. Moved on to clarinet, and that wasn't very good either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Question number 4. Are you currently where you want to be in life?
I'm right here. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. We don't I don't think we altogether get to choose that. I mean, it sounds good.
Yeah.
I'm right where I want to be, but there's too much in life that's not in our control. And so I would say, yeah, I'm where I am, and it's good to be here.
Yeah. I've had these probably way too in-depth conversations with people in the past about that. Like, there's series of events in your life that happen, and you go back and man, I wish that wouldn't have happened. But it also, because of that, I'm kind of where I am right now.
Boy. Yeah. So that really resonates. Do you want to hear more?
Sure.
So there's an artist, a musician. She's Canadian. Her name's Kathleen Edwards. I've been in love with her music. My wife Kathy and I have been in love with her music for 20 plus years. Her first album was called Failure. The first two albums she had were really about these characters that were failures or had immense issues. And I think they were, by her own admission, the characters were in some ways reflections of what was going on in her life. And she actually had a period of time where she quit the music business, went back to Canada, opened a coffee store, which I believe she called Quitter's Coffee. And then you fast forward, and just a few weeks ago, she's jumped back out, and she was performing here locally in Charlotte at the Evening Muse, and we got to go see her, which was magical because we'd never seen her before. And one of the things that's so true in her story is she's on the stage, and now the songs she's performed, or a lot of them, are about not just that acceptance of that time period in her life, but like the embrace of it and the gratitude for it without needing to make it perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, on her left on the stage is her now ex-husband who was in her band. And I don't know how you do that, but there was no Civil War up there.
Sure.
So yeah, I think that's definitely a thing too. And I think, I'm not sure but I'd expect that of a 30-year-old. Maybe that's not even possible until you're in your 40s or 50s. You've had enough failure and enough time has passed to see the good that came from it. And so I think you're right. Like the not just the acceptance, but the embrace of what is.
Sure. I like it. Last question, number 5.
All right.
What is an interesting fact that you've recently learned?
And wow, it would have to be a fact, and it has to be interesting. And I would have had to just learn it.
Those are all
components. Those are all the elements. I mean, it's terrible. It's an interesting fact, and I just learned it. Well, I'm going to say this, and I'm not trying to make it a segue, but it might be. What I've learned is that, again, how important it is every day to be as honest as is possible with myself. And if I can have some experience of that every day and relearn that, that's the best day possible.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I like it. Well, congratulations. You made it through rapid fire.
Okay.
We'll give you a
score later.
No, we'll give you a score now.
Okay.
893.
Because I'm an Enneagram 3, I just wonder how that compares to the other competitors that have been in here before. But you don't have to tell me. You can get back to me on that if you want.
We'll do that.
Okay.
All right. So let's kind of get into the conversation for today around kind of your experience over the past 10 years, things that you've picked up on. Because, one of the things about this podcast is always focused on business ideas, practices, and strategies. That's really kind of the heartbeat of what we've been trying to communicate over the last 4 years, is how we can share those things with people, maybe bring things to people's attention, or make their lives a little better, or their businesses a little better. It's intriguing to me. So I'm in one of your Vistage groups, so I get to have a monthly coaching session with you, as well as sit in on a group session every month, and you always make it a point to bring new ideas to the conversation, make people think and challenge kind of what they're thinking, so that it can kind of move forward. It seems like you fight against stagnancy. You really say, well, if you're stuck on this, then why? Like, is it something that you just need to forget or move on? Make a decision on it. Like, how do you move on those things? So there's a lot of interesting concepts that I've seen just in the period of time that I've known you, but I would really be intrigued by some of the really big lessons that you've learned, or some takeaways that you've seen through those conversations, through those coaching sessions, through those group sessions, that you're like, this is something that other people need to know. And I'll give one small example, and so you can't use this one as one of these. But in our last session, our last group session, you went through an entire kind of breakdown of how to plan a yearly calendar, how to be focused and intentional about managing your calendar. And for some, that may sound very basic or very simple because they've already gone through the challenges of mismanaging a calendar. But I recall very intently years ago, I had a major snafu with not managing my calendar well. And I had a customer that was very frustrated with me because of the fact I missed a meeting that I didn't put on a calendar.
The worst feeling.
Yeah, horrible.
Yeah.
So it's important. So there was a very, very defined timeline that changed the trajectory for me of how I manage my time. But for those that were in the room, you saw a lot of note taking, a lot of things like, okay, these are some things that I can apply. And those are just practical things that everybody can use. Yeah. You brought that to the table because you've seen other people struggle with, I'm assuming you've seen other people struggle with managing their calendars and managing their time in that position.
I work with busy people. And then they show up as busy in those at the start of those conversations. And it's not serving them well. And there's just been, for lots of different reasons, lots of benefits to being busy. I still believe there are benefits to being busy, but there are detriments. And it's just I think it's a balance sheet. First of all, figure out what's the benefit this giving me, but what's it costing me too? And so just coming at it from that angle, then there's always room for improvement. The people that you get to hang out with, I know some of your folks here, it's the same thing here at Loc-Doc. Definitely true with the folks I get to work with every day. It's they want to get better. Just I have a member who, when I say, what do we want to do today? It's I want to get a little better today, Kurt. This guy is really good at what he does, but and it's not fake. He wants to grow. He wants to learn. He wants to grow. And so the time piece for me is something I just constantly see. And can I go off on time just a minute here?
This is your podcast.
Okay. I just picked this up off a podcast called This Union Life. Okay. So that's my reference point. And the conversation on that particular podcast episode was around invitations that we receive and how the power of an invitation. So one of the examples they would use is someone says to you, Chad, we need a new, we're looking for some new board members. Not only that, we're looking for someone to be the new chairman of the board, and you would be perfect. And depending on your personality type, that will be it just makes you want to, oh man, it would be perfect, right? So we end up saying yes to a lot of things. We think we're saying yes one time, but if you say yes to something like being the chairman on a board, you will be asked to keep saying yes and no to a lot of things going forward that you really don't feel you can say no to. And in 2 years, you may be saying yes to all kinds of things you could never imagine to. But we said yes at the very beginning, not realizing how much chronos time it would take, sort of chronological time. And then your calendar is too full and you're busy. One of the reasons why we maybe say yes to things is because there's another kind of time called kairos. And kairos was apparently there was a Greek god and there was actually some sort of shrine set up to him outside of Olympia where the Olympics were held. And this was fascinating to me. This god controlled the moment of time. And so you would want to make an offering to him before he went in and threw a javelin or competed in some way, because he was the god that controlled the moment where maybe the wind would just come up right as you release the javelin, and your javelin would go and your throw would be perfect and the foot would be planted just right. And in the moment you would capture a huge life-changing opportunity. And those moments do happen in our lives. And I think that we say yes to many things, hoping for that. And then when it doesn't happen, we don't have the guts to start saying no to them when it becomes obvious. And sometimes this would be one of my things for sure, looking at really busy people. The kairos moment isn't coming to them because the chronos moment is so full. And And then they wonder why they're not growing exponentially, or their business isn't growing exponentially, and they're in pain. And it's because they're constantly trying to improve incrementally or grow incrementally, and they're trapped in today a series of days where there's not much change really being made.
Yeah.
That's a lot of riff.
Well, the takeaway for those things for me are that is a practical thing that anybody, I was trying to summarize this to simplify it. It's resource management. So you're managing time, you may be managing finances, you're managing people, whatever. You're managing resources at some level. And I would say typically when you just struggle with resource management, it's not in just one area.
It's going to be everywhere. Yeah, the way I do anything is the way I do everything. So if I'm struggling with time here, I'm struggling with time and relationships at home and everywhere else. Yeah, definitely resources.
Yeah. So it's the base kind of conversation where it's how do you become a better resource manager versus just managing your time, because it's probably you're building debt one way or another of things. So, but those are go ahead. So, and many business owners, because that's who I mostly work with, and the people who work for them. There's a chair named Alan Hauge, and I stole this phrase from him. Many of my clients are pathological givers, and you see them in your fellow members, and probably see this me exhibiting the behavior in you as well, where we're saying yes so much it's just pathological. We're just not stopping to say, why am I saying yes? And so what's going to happen if I keep saying yes? And so starting from no, if you're Myers-Briggs is in the middle of an NF, you would know this type of person. And it's, you're intuitive. And so when someone asks you, when an opportunity comes, it's just full of opportunity, it feels like, because I can intuit it and I'm feeling it. But I wake up too often, I'm like, oh man, I felt the wrong thing. What have I done? I gotta go back to thinking here now. I was having a conversation just a few hours ago with somebody about the same thing. Where you're starting from a yes or starting from a no? Start from no, and it's always a challenge from the person on the opposite perspective.
At Loc-Doc Security, we believe your camera system should provide more than just surveillance. Being able to see exactly what's going on at your place of business from your phone or computer is fantastic. But what if there were more analytics giving you the ability to improve your business operations? Track how many people visited your location, stopped by your display, and even how often they passed by your store. Be alerted if someone was loitering, vandalizing your business, or even dumping trash. It's time for you to take advantage of this technology. Contact us today for more information about our cloud-based camera systems. Loc-Doc Security, helping you protect your people and property.
So what are some other, outside of that, managing resources, which I think was just kind of a practical
and we should all be shrewd about that.
Yeah. What is another lesson that you've seen maybe consistently that business owners or managers are being challenged with that has come up consistently through those hours of conversation?
Maybe change doesn't take very long. Maybe change is, I'll just give you an example, and it's inexplicable to me after those 8,000 hours of coaching, 10,000 years of coaching and facilitation. I can sit down with one business owner, and let's say the issue is something around their culture, and we'll chat through it, and we'll talk about what their blind spots, we'll talk about what their contributions are, and they'll come up with a plan, and they'll go out, and I'll have a conversation later the day with another member of Vistage, and we'll work the same thing, and they'll be like, this is going to take some time. And we come back a month later, or they work with their group, and in 1 month's time, the first member's back, and they're saying things like, I thought it was going to be hard, but we did this, this, and this, and everything's fine now. And it was like the behaviors they were seeing, which were reflective of their culture or are the culture, it changed like on a dime. And for other people, it is glacial and maybe never changes. And I'm often mystified about what is happening there? What's really happening so that some people, it seems like their challenges are intractable or chronic, and other people just keep breaking through them. And I don't have a great explanation for what that. I have some ideas, but I couldn't say here's 3 ways to, be like the first person, not the second. But there's definitely differences, and it's sort of mystifying.
Yeah.
And so people look stuck, and other people just apparently get big cultural changes quickly, especially around culture, because that does feel like it's people. It'll take us time to change our people or whatever. And for some people, it's not that hard at all.
Well, what have you figured out the root of that is?
I think some things. I think that some of it is just the leader just has a mindset that, as somebody said just earlier today, like they just decide they're over it.
Yeah. And
it isn't necessarily anger. It's just like, no, I'm done with this, and it's not like I'm the boss and I'm the change. It's like this isn't who we are. Mm-hmm. So it's that that model of be, do, have. So they're going right up to the upper spot, which is like, no, we are these people, and this behavior is not consistent with who we are. And so we're going to go right back to who we say we are. And if we do that, then that's going to mean we're going to do some things differently, starting as soon as we have the conversation. And, if you're the person delivering that message, and here's how we're going to, here's what we're going to do in the future, and you're being really clear and not judgmental. We're assessing things, and we're getting real clear about it. And it doesn't feel personal. Yeah. That is a big part of it too. Is like, I think that organizations and leaders that make things personal instead of making it about the business, get much worse results, and change takes much longer, if it'll even happen. So an example of that would be, and I think it's still in this same question you're asking. So why do some things get better and some don't? So if there's a problem with a customer, a building, right? And the information comes back in to you, and if you as the leader say, and let's say it comes in and it's to one of your supervisors, and it's a complaint from a customer, and then your supervisor comes to you and tells you what's going on, and you say, well, the customer is, you go to make it personal about their share of it. You'll never be able to change your own piece of it. So instead of just saying, just sounds like it's not working, before we go to who, which is going to create blame, let's just go to like, what's really happening? Why is it happening? And let's extract the blame out of it.
Gotcha. And
just make it about the business. A good example of that would be another example where it'd be like, okay, a lot of people would be like, let's say we're managers of a business together.
Yep.
So we're co-managing this business, and we're thinking that we're going to need somebody for a new role. You've got somebody in mind, and I've got somebody in mind. So when we sit down from the very beginning, we start campaigning a little bit about like, I think Dave would be great. You're like, I think Sally would be great. And so from the very beginning, we're sort of trying to get position instead of saying, why do we need this position? What would the position look like? When would they start? Where would they be? I'll say, and now guess what? Here's all the competencies we want. Now, who? And so that's getting personality or people in front of, and that's always very emotional and not about the business. And so I think that folks that are able to, in their business decisions, I'm not saying they shouldn't feel, because that's how we make decisions. But if for a moment they can suspend going that attachment to people and go to what's really the best solution for the customer, for us, whatever, then they can.
I've had some conversations here recently, and I think this is lining up with my thought on it, is we're trying to switch our mindset to what it is that we're trying to accomplish, or what good looks like, versus the how. And so what I just heard you say in that particular situation is the what is good, and then the who is the secondary.
But who's down below for sure.
Yeah, but we always it's very easy for us to start on the what we need to do and not really or the how we're going to do it without understanding the what, and or in your just situation is the who, and then figure out the what. And I feel like it's a backwards mentality, but it's the easiest. Like it's the easiest path a lot of times because you can start that progression a lot faster.
Yeah, I know the coaching session is going to go interesting when somebody says, we're going to go open up a location here. We're going to create a new position, and we already know who's going to do it. I'm like, oh, okay. Why am I here?
Yeah,
I'm here to start shooting holes in that thinking, right? Really, or like, how do we end up on a person, and you don't even have the position to find from what it's going to do for the business, what it's going to do for your customers.
Sure.
There's a lack of critical thinking.
Yeah.
We all do better when there's more critical thinking.
Sure.
And surprisingly how little there is of it sometimes in decision making.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of my 8,000 hours opinions. Like, no, think a little more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another one would be, I learned this from a member, and it's been so valuable for me over the last, especially 3 years. And it's the idea of circumspection, which is, you don't hear the word circumspection very often, but literally think of it like it means walking around in an inspection. Mm-hmm. So I had an experience just recently for me where, a group of people, Vistage chairs that are in a national setting, people that I probably, admired for years, extended an invitation for me to join them on a monthly virtual call. And of course, the little Kurt inside me was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I got invited. And it was on a Friday afternoon. I got there, got this text or got this email, and I was really excited, but I thought, you got to slow down, and you need to walk around yourself a little bit. Mm-hmm. So I woke up the next morning and I actually read it again and noticed there were some details in it, and they gave me pause. And then I just spent some time, like I said, walking around myself and inspecting myself and saying, why that emotion? What am I pretending not to know? Mm-hmm. And, it didn't take but about 10 minutes of that to realize, the right thing to do is to say thank you, but this is not a good idea for me to do.
Yeah.
And that got me to know. And, but I did delay to send a response because I just wanted to let it sit. Mm-hmm. So if you're a person that makes fast decisions, maybe will resonate with somebody like that. Sometimes the answer and what's missing is the ability to just walk around ourselves and observe ourselves, and strong emotions. And what makes you pound the table in anger? What makes you light up and beam with joy? That's tapping into something that's in right at our core, mm-hmm. and would be worth inspecting. Doesn't mean it's a no if you're yes, but doesn't mean it'll be helpful. And when I sent my response back, the person just responded with so much grace and said, love the fact that you're keeping your boundaries, something that no one has ever said to me before.
Yeah. And
let us know when you're ready to come back on your hands and knees crawling and asking to get in.
Sure.
But so I think the people who get the most sustained growth are the folks that have the ability to do the work of examining themselves. I'm just going to call it, I like the idea of walking around yourself in a circumspection, knowing that there's dangers there and strengths and positive things. And they learn on themselves so they can help other people do it.
Yeah.
Managing your facility, properties, and projects is hard enough. Trying to find an emailed quote in your overflowing inbox is just one more annoyance, especially if there are multiple versions. We're working hard to make your life easier by providing all the information you need in one place. Now you can request service at a date and time that works for you. And we're making it easier to see quotes and materials needed for specific openings, including photos, so that you can approve everything from the convenience of your phone or computer. Log in to start using it now. Visit customer.locdoc.net.
So managing resources, time and money,
Yeah.
change doesn't take that long.
Change doesn't take that long.
Think a little more.
Think a lot more. Walk around yourself.
And some circumspection.
Yeah. Yeah. What else did I learn in 8,000 hours of conversations? I think you hit it earlier. Like, you're not that special. Remember the, what was the poster guys things? They used to have like all the funny sayings. Or like, you're too young. They used to have these things.
Oh.
Chad, they used to have these things called posters.
Sure. I'm familiar with that. Where it's like an eagle or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and a lion and whatever. So one of theirs was a snowflake, and it says, "You're not that sure you're special, just like everyone else."
Yeah.
And I think you alluded to that. Like your problems feel unique to you, and if you're a leader, you likely feel shame about them,
Mm-hmm.
but you're suffering just like everybody else, and there's nothing more amazing than saying the worst thing about yourself in a room and having everybody smile and say, "Me too." Like, you too. You're in the right room.
Yeah.
That is you prove that you belong here because you're suffering enough.
Yeah.
I think that's powerful. I love that.
I remember in our last group meeting, we were working through an issue with someone and just peppering them with questions. And
You were over peppering, but that's okay. Didn't say you particularly, but yes.
and then somebody said at the end, hey, the only reason we're asking these questions or giving you this recommendation is because we've all gone through this exact same thing.
Yeah.
I was like, that's very true.
We're going to shorten the suffering for you because, I do think that's the most beautiful thing about what I get to do is, we say, you invite business owners to show up and human beings do.
Yeah.
So and I'm amazed always at the diverse degree of answers. So like, it's not like you have to do what people are recommending because
Sure.
they're just recommending out of their experience and they could be absolutely wrong. So you have to be smart enough to figure that out. But they're giving you their very best when they're giving you a criticism.
Yeah.
They're giving you the very best thing they have. And can I tell a story on myself about that? The first time I brought an issue to my Vistage group. So Vistage chairs, we are not hypocrites. We have our own Vistage group. So my Vistage group is composed of all these chairs from the Carolinas. So 10 years ago, probably about 9.5 years ago, I go to my Vistage group to deliver my first issue. And I'm sure the issue was something like, I'm having trouble, filling the group. Like I'm stuck at 8 members or 9 members or something. And as you know, in our tradition, when the person shares what's going on, and then we have a very intense time of question asking. And people ask one time, and typically people have their name tag and put their name tag up, and that's their chance to go. So when I finish explaining, it's like all the name tags go up, and there's one guy that has. His name is Dan Wurtenberg, so I'm just going to call him out. Yeah. He's across the table. Dan worked for Lee Iacocca, so he has some strength behind him. And he looks across the room at me, and he doesn't even break the sky. He just looks at me. He's like, you've got a huge problem, man. You've got a huge problem. I don't know how you're going to solve it. I'm like, all right. I'm waiting for a question. He's like, you're too serious. I don't know who's going to want to be your member. I'm like,
that wasn't a question.
I was like, I didn't hear a question. Nobody laughed when I made my joke. And wow, what happened was I went out in the car afterwards. At the end of the meeting, I thought, I hate them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to go back there. Mm-hmm. It hurt that bad. I really was hurt. And then what I saw was he was the guy who would call me and say, Kurt, are you working on the lighten up thing?
Yeah.
And I'd be like, I don't know. But then I noticed every time we had a meeting every month, Dan would sidle up next to me, give me a big hug and laugh and be like, you need to lighten up. He would just rub my nose in it. And so, what was wonderful about what he did was in the moment when I needed somebody to say, tell me the truth, he basically told me the truth, and he didn't mince it. He basically told me what he thought, which was nobody's going to join your group. And he was right. It was probably another 4 or 5 months before I changed that. And humor was the right way to go. He was right.
Yeah.
But there was no humorous way to deliver that
Sure.
message because it was a very somber message. So I don't know. I think that like that, and now 10 years later, when I see in my Vistage group new chairs come in, or I see those new members come in the room, what I see is the intimidation they feel because they're in a group of people that've been together and they don't want to disclose. And when they disclose the first time they do, it feels hard and maybe they take it personal. But it's not. It's personal. Like people are trying to help you and they love you too much to let you walk out without knowing you're part of the equation.
Yeah, but I think it's like kind of that rite of passage situation because it is emotionally exhausting to open up to a group of people regardless, and then depending on the response, and it's like so. But it helps to move things forward, and it helps to once you process that one time, then it's like
or they quit. Or the next coaching session I'm in, they say I don't think the group's for me, and I have to say maybe you're right.
Yeah.
So that's okay. Not everybody wants to be in for growth.
Yeah.
Growth means you got to suffer.
Yeah. That's facts.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good point to end on. Growth means you have to suffer.
You got to suffer.
Yeah.
If you don't suffer, you're not suffering, you're not growing.
I like it.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for being here today, Kurt.
Thank you for having me.
Kurt, thanks for the conversation today. It was a blast. We are ready to go for another episode next week. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss it. Every Tuesday morning at 9 a.m., brand new episode. And it's all available for you at Loc-Doc.net/podcast. Thank you for joining us today. And we'll see you next time right here on the Coffee Break Podcast.